So this is a list. The numbers are what's on the screen. I've got the printout if anybody's looking at it online. And it should be a printout of these numbers and this kind of beside of it. But these are from COVID year, so obviously these are different, but it's good data to use. On the left side, I've got number of absences. On the right side is their semester 1 grade. And so we are determining if there's a linear relationship between those. So let's go ahead and type these in a list. So which one of these would be our explanatory? Number of absences. So go ahead and type those in your list 1 real quick. And your grades in list 2. And I'm not taking homework for tomorrow. So I know if you're still typing in numbers, it's fine. Just ignore me. What we are going to do is write out everything that would be in the Minitab output, which we talked about with chapter 3. We just talked about a lot of stuff that we said we don't know what any of this is yet, so don't worry about it. You will never be asked to make a Minitab output the way that we are doing. But if you understand how you could go from everything in your calculator to writing down every single thing for the Minitab output, then it's really easy to just be able to read a Minitab output if I give you one. So I do it this way so that you understand what everything is. So this is, wish I would have copied it better. This is your general format of what we're dealing with. So we've got everything in list 1, list 2. Now, I talked about this a little bit on Friday, and I talked about how we could go, if we were in chapter 3, where would probably be the first thing we were doing if we weren't graphing in our calculator? Stat Calc 8. Now that we understand that there's more than just that, I wouldn't ever do that anymore if you know that you are doing a test or an interval. Because if you run the full test or interval, it'll give you everything that you would have gotten step by step on the way there. So we know that we're running a test. So let's go ahead and do that. So go to stat, over to test. You're going from the bottom. So your homework was G. What we did in class was F. Let's do F right now and do it as a linear regression test. So we're going here. Now we're doing list 1 versus list 2. As far as an alternative, right now, I want to choose not equal to. What does it mean to be not equal to? Two-tail. What did I tell you that your Minitab output is always going to do? Give you the results of a two-tail. So I'm running it that way so that we can have our numbers for this. So run it as a two-tail. Go ahead and run that. So when I go through this and actually run it, it's going to give me my test statistic value, my p-value, my degrees of freedom. Now I can keep scrolling down. my y-intercept, my slope, my S. What do we say S was? We didn't talk about it a whole lot. Standard deviation of something. No. We end up getting what talks about how wrong we were. How wrong we were with our guess. Which gives us our what? Residuals. So these are the standard deviation of your residuals. S is. But this is why I choose not to go to just LinReg 8, because it's going to give me everything I need plus that if I go ahead and run the test. So here, looking at the way that this is going to be written on Minitab output, what do we usually put before the equal sign? Y hat. Now, the way they do their Minitab output, they're going to put word or words there. So what are we going to put there? Which one is our Y? And this is at equals. It's just copied over terrible. So we usually do a hat here. Minitab is started very cut and dry, and I don't know why they haven't switched it, because technology, and they can actually put a hat there, but they don't when they write this up here. So then we're writing this the rest of the way we usually write the equation. So what goes here? 89.2596. I left this tiny little weird blank here because I kind of have to make a decision with what? Positive or negative? Well, my slope is what? Negative. And it is negative what? It is negative 0.3258. And then, so what's going to go here? So this is, like I said, usually typed out for you. So these words are always going to be there: predictor, constant, coefficient, standard error coefficient. Sometimes it says standard deviation, but not very often. A T and a P. So what number is going to go right here? My y-intercept. So that's my 89.2596. This changes problem to problem. What do I put here? In this case, absences at your x value. And so that's always a word or words. So in your equation, what always goes beside of your x? Slope. So negative 0.3258. Our calculator output actually gave us S, which was 10.8725. Talking about what that is, what is your explanation for what is the standard deviation? Like way back when, if I said explain standard deviation or interpret standard deviation. The average distance from the mean. Well, since this is residuals, this is the average distance what? And what is that line? Which is our what for the problem? Okay, we said this is the standard deviation of what? Y'all don't need to write this. So residuals are observed minus predicted. So it's basically the average of those. So it's the average our observed were from our predicted values is what that is. It gives us r squared, but it usually writes it, like you can see, it doesn't write on that one, as a percent when we get this output. So we're writing this as 16.98%. So the only part that we haven't really talked about is any of this section. So looking at our calculator output, the stuff that I haven't dealt with yet are our T and our P. So this is our test statistic value, which is our T. Do you think it is going to go beside of absences or constant? Well, this is our y-intercept, this is our slope. So are we running a test for slope or y-intercept? Slope. So I'm putting negative 2.4358 right there. My p-value for that is 0.0212, which we said is always for a two-tail. Now, our actual equation for test statistic is what? Like in the do section. Well, do we know what this value is? Do we know what this is? Which is the negative 0.3258. Do we know what beta is? What we used as beta? So can we actually do a tiny bit of algebra and figure out what this actually is? So multiplying, we get my standard error of beta here, and then I'm going to divide. So standard error of beta can actually be found by negative 0.3258 divided by negative 2.4358. So I type that in real quick. Tell me what you get. Now, understanding that isn't usually something that's tested on a test or AP exam, but it's something that can help you get to pieces a different way. And I've seen a lot of people use that, like this, to go backwards in a way that on problems that I didn't think they would have needed to, and it just kind of helped them out. But this is why in our equation, we usually write this and then go straight to our test statistic value, because sometimes we can't figure out what this value is, and so we just skip straight to what the test statistic is. Now, this whole section that I haven't filled out would be if we were running a what for what? If we were running a test for y-intercept, we don't deal with that for this class. Technically, you could do it, but is running a test for slope helpful? Yes, because you can see the relationship. Is running a test for y-intercept really that helpful? You would just be able to figure out just literally the y-intercept instead of a rate of change like slope is. So it's not really that helpful, which is why we don't deal with it. But I guess technically if they asked you some weird question about it, you could use those. All right, so let's look at an example where we start with the output and then go backwards from there. So you don't need this in front of you. This is just to make sure that y'all are okay with what I just did. So this is what it would actually look like when you get it. You're going to have numbers up here for your output for the y-intercept. You just won't need it. So if I'm completing the do section and I'm testing to see if there is a negative linear association, what does it mean to be negative? That means my null hypothesis is what? And that my alternative is, which means we are doing a what? One tail. So in my test statistic, I'm going to write my generic. So B minus beta divided by standard error of B. I know that this is going to equal what? And I can fill in those numbers because I'm actually given all of them. So technically I could have done with this one. But if I'm doing it in my calculator, not getting calculator or a Minitab output, I wouldn't know that one. And then, so it's gonna look like this. Where is my line? Which side?
What?
Which way do I shade?
What?
And I know that my p-value is going to be what? So it's going to be half of this. Because this is always going to give you two-tail. So my p-value is that. And that's the one place that you have to be tricky about looking out for. So if you get Minitab output and you are doing a one-tail, you have to remember to divide by 2. Questions with any of that? So we've already talked through all this except, hey, sometimes I give you this and what it means, but you shouldn't have had any issues with it because we've talked about it, we just haven't actually done it. I'm good. I already have things available online. I'm getting ready to put them out for you. I just didn't know how many people would be here. I might not have your class pulled up. So I have it separated as a chapter 3 review, which includes multiple choice and free response. And then my chapter 12 just happened to be separate. It's a few short multiple choice reviews and then a free response review. This is for today and tomorrow. The only thing I'm going to do at the beginning tomorrow is go over the homework from Friday. So work in whatever order you want. But I'll go ahead and print all that out for you.